Hey guys, welcome back to the poker vlog. This is Charlie here, as you all probably know. Today I'm going to be going through the 2020 WSONP, aka the World Series of Nuts and Poker. I'll be going over my perspective of all the hands in the tournament, mostly just the significant ones, and reviewing these hands as best as possible. I know this video is highly anticipated, and hopefully all the hard work pays off and it's a good video. So yeah, I hope you enjoy. Waking up in the morning, have some breakfast. We got the wheat bix, the honey and the milk to get the energy going. It was a great day in Camberwell, just peeking into summertime. All the first tables had been drawn. It was my turn to sit and get grinding for what would be a long, day's work. We're playing 20 players, so $20 buy-in, 3 tables of 8, 8 and 7, $400 prize pool, so probably the biggest tournament that I've played in. To start the tournament, we are playing on the second table, so not the feature table, on the pool table unfortunately, but we'll still be playing 8-handed with a starting stack of 5,400. Level 1 starting at 10 small blind, 20 big blind with no ante. And a couple orbits in, we pick up pocket 7s in the cutoff, as me and Mr. Pocket Pairs likes to do. Under the gun folds, but all 3 players in early and middle position limp for 20, as expected early on in the tournament. I raised 2.5x to 50, trying to isolate the loose canvas sitting in the blinds. However, both the blinds fold, to my surprise, and both the under the gun +1 and +2 call for 30 more. The range shouldn't be really at the top heading to this flop, seeing that they're both, limp prior to my raise out of position. So, they'll be raising a lot of their bigger hands early on in this stage of the tournament. And, onwards in the deeper stages. Anyway, the flop comes out, Queen, Ace, Rainbow. Not the best flop for me. I mean, quite a one-dimensional board, you could say. However, both players check. I bet 90 into 180. I mean, I really cannot rep that many hands here in the cutoff, especially strong hands like Ace Queen, but a lot of the time, Ace Queen isn't necessary here. I could probably take down this pot with, a lot of, weaker holdings like, jacks, 10s, 9s, any Queen Jack, Queen 10 really could have hit that. But, yeah, I bet 90 to 180. The under the gun +1 folds, and the under the gun +2 makes a fairly quick call, which is not very good. But anyway, turn comes the Jack of Diamonds. He checks again, so at this time I'm feeling like I got the winner. I'm going to be betting for value here, but I actually decided to check back for pot control, as I would do with any marginal made hands. And also, this gives the under the gun +1 player, under the gun +2, a chance to have a stab at it on the river as well. And then I can, check raise and thin and get some more value. The river comes and it's the 5 of diamonds, so completing the backdoor flush draw. This can suit my range in the cutoff as well, because if I manage to pick up a flush draw on the turn like that, I will check back a lot of the time to see a free card, because, the under the gun +2 player called after making my C bet on the flop. So it's most of the time it's good to check back so I don't inflate the pot in case I don't hit and then have to make another bet on the river, and then I'm just taking myself to value town there. Anyway, he checks for the 3rd time, so I'm to value bet here, so trying to get a size in that any weak hands can call, any really just low pairs, anything that I can squeeze out of, and anything that really hasn't hit. Any high cards are probably going to fold to any bet here. So I bet 150 into 380 in the pot, as if I made the backdoor flush, or, for the non-believer crew, as if I was holding like, 4 or 5, suited and made 2 pairs, something like that. 150 also allows anyone for holding middle pocket pairs to consider a call for such a great price. Anyway, he thinks for a bit before eventually flat calling. Me thinking I'm beat here, because not many hands I'm beating. But to my surprise, he shows pocket 6s, and I take down a nice pot to start off the 2020 WSONP with the lucky 7s. Back at it again, we look down at pocket 10s. the WSONP special, aka I'm about to be taken to Coolerville Central, as you can see over here, Coolerville. In the under the gun spot, I raised to 60. Could be better to raise under the gun a bit, higher, 4 to 5x at 80 to 100, Saying that a lot of players are calling with marginal hands earlier on in the tournaments, they don't understand blinds and all that, so might be better off raising a bit higher, especially under the gun. However, I choose to go with the more reserve line earlier on. That was my strategy. And the under the gun +1 player calls, an inexperienced player, new to Texas Hold'em. Little does he know he will be taking himself to Value Town against Feel My Power Big Dog Dunning. Over here, so just Value Town. It's pretty far away from Coolerville, so hopefully I don't make the journey across, Value Town to Coolerville, but I guess we'll see. Anyway, the flop comes out Queen Jack 3, giving us third pair and some backdoor straight opportunities. Not every time is it good to c-bet after raising pre-flopped, but as I raise pre-flop and under the gun, I can assess my range is slightly better than my opponents, and hence a bet is required. I lead for 66% of the pot, so 100 to 150. He calls. At this point, he could realistically have hands like, Queen Jack, Jack 10, 10, 9, or some potential weak ace hands with high card. But I can still make plans to get him off most of those hands by barreling clean turns and rivers. I mean, if any more weight connected cards come, it's going to be hard for me to, barrel down, especially because his range is slightly more, wider to those straight draws. But I could rep a set of jacks and queens and also ace queen as well, saying that I raised under the gun. The turn is the 2 of clubs. A great card once again to show to my opponent that I am at the top of my range. Another bet here, a little more tempting in the under the gun +1. For the under the gun +1, sorry, at 30% pot. I bet 150 into 350. This screams value. A lot of the players don't understand pot bet sizing and all that, so 30% actually may not be the best decision here against a weaker player, because he may think that he's getting such a good price to call for other hands, but at the same time I do think I'm ahead at this point. So I bet the 150. He quickly asks what chip value is the green chip. As you can see here, green chips, they say 25 on them. So yeah, at this point I think I may be ahead. He has minimal idea as to what he is doing at the table. In the least disrespectful way, he is certainly being taken to Value Town. Anyway, the greatest blank, the 6 of diamonds on the river. I bet 200, begging for a call from the fish. I mean, I'm just trying to get as many chips as I can in the pot, knowing that I'm probably ahead. He's probably got like ace high, king high even, just trying to get a call from him. He snap calls me and shows 9, 8 of hearts. So a busted gut shot, and yeah, these are the moments in poker you wonder, what are you doing calculating odds and bet sizing when your opponent calls 3 straights with a gut shot and a busted gut shot on the river. I scoop a big pot of 1,000, putting my stack just over 6,000, ending level 1 in a good way. After a small break, we sit back down on the same table with 20 players left in the 20. The tables get rearranged randomly every hour, so after every 2 levels, just to make the tournament fair and make sure that the tables are the same, have the same amount of players on them. The blinds have gone up to 20, 40, and no ante still for level 2. Second hand in on the level, the action falls to me in the LOWJACK. I limp for 40 with A7 offsuit as a bit of a variation play. A7 is probably one of the worst hands you can play out of position. It's one of the worst, it is the worst ace X holding. And not great to play really unless you're on the button. You can make arguments obviously for like 5-2 offsuit, 7-2, whatever. But realistically A7 is not the greatest hand to play out of position. Anyway, the cutoff calls after me for 40, and then the big blind min raises to 80. So for such a good price, I kind of have to call here. I've seen the big blind in the first hand this level and just the most previous hand raised 2x with queen jack offsuit under the gun. So yeah, that's interesting that his range seems to be a bit off there. So for me, it's probably an easy call to call with a7 offsuit here. The cutoff calls, and we go three ways to a pot of 260. The flop comes out ace-6-3 rainbow. The pre-flop raiser checks, so the big blind. I lead for 80 into 260, going with my low ball approach for the tournament, which involves keeping the pots as small as possible against weak players to avoid bad run-outs and getting into sticky situations. And getting it all in too early because I want to run pretty deep in this tournament. The cutoff calls, this is the same player who called previously on the river with a busted gut shot in level 1 with the 9-8 of hearts. So I'm not too worried about him. And the big blind also flats. This is quite suspicious of the big blind because, he tends to just fold unless he hits the board just based on level 1, watching some of the hands he plays. Anyway. The turn brings the 9 of spades, a good card for me, but also pretty, one-dimensional. I could well and truly be calling with ace-9 or ace-9 offsuit, suited, whatever, pre-flop, in my position. But that's hard for my opponents to put me in that range. So, yet again, it's just, not bad. Anyway, the big blind checks again. So here I decide to give up on the hand, as the cutoff is kind of ruining it for me a little bit. He's still in the position, and he kind of amplifies the pot a bit too much. So when I make bets, he tends to just call him off and give the big blind better pot odds. So I check, really not liking my holding too much anymore. Checking here is good for pot control and also deception. So if anything happens on the river, then I can, make a play and try and take down a pot. This also means that, later on in the tournament, when I see bet, I get less respect because it shows that I was bluffing earlier on, as seen in this hand. The cutoff checks back as expected, so we see a river for free. The river is the queen of diamonds. As I'm about to give up, the big blind checks for the third time. So at this point, thinking, my hand's pretty good here and I want to take this one down. Maybe, bet for value. Anyway, sparking both confusion for me with the big blind checking, I bet 150 into 500, trying to squeeze some value from the cutoff. The cutoff calls to my delight, which was great. But the big blind also calls. So, yeah, I take the bait like a fish. So the cutoff shows ace-2 offsuit, and as I'm about to, scoop the pot, the big blind shows ace-king. He shows the church for top pair, top kicker, smackdown. So all the players hit top pair on the flop in an unusual hand. Well, you know what they say, replay poker teaches them to slow roll, and I tell you what, fair play to the donk, he got his chips. Level 2 kind of ran out pretty dry from then on, and yeah, we move on to level 3. The blinds increased to 40-80 with still no ante. The first hour is over, calling for a table swap, putting us 8-handed on the feature table, so the pool table. Possibly providing the most action-packed 30 minutes of the night. There was a lot of hands in this level, as you'll see. Early on in the level, I looked down to ace of clubs, 3 of hearts in the cutoff. Both the under the gun and under the gun +1 limp for 80. Seems to be a lot of pre-flop limping in early position in this tournament, which I'm not too pleased about. The table seems to be fairly consistent and conservative, other than the player that acts directly after me, so to the left, and the current big stack who calls many hands pre-flop out of position. So I take note of those two, but for this reason, I decided to raise 2.5x to 200 to aim to fold the button and the under the gun, the big stack, and potentially play a pot in position against one of the more conservative players on the table. The button calls, as expected, with his fairly low EV players. He has demonstrated throughout the tournament as of yet, as I saw on some of the other previous hands. And even worse to my concern, of my pre-flop raise, the big stack also calls, leaving me out of position in a 4-way pot as the under the gun +1 also calls for 120 more. Just to our delight and respect, I guess, the flop comes out ace queen 3, giving us top and bottom pair, effectively the nuts against everyone apart from under the gun +1. At this point, my range to the other players is fairly isolated to, you know, conservative play due to my inability to variate my stack size for the first hour and a half of the tournament. And the fact that I have a fairly conservative play style to others in the tournament who I've played with previously in other, you know, games. The action checks around to me on the flop. Here it's good to value bet when you have the nuts or strong holdings, so flop betting isn't polarized to bluffs because, you know, C betting seems to be quite a, you know, repetitive situation, and a lot of the time C betting can be seen as bluffs, so you got to make sure you bet the good hands as well. A lot of conservative players tend to raise pre-flop and then raise again on the flop as C bet, as I was saying. However, this play style is quite ignorant to range. I mean, you really got to take into consideration whose range best suits the flop, so C betting isn't always, you know, beneficial. For this reason, I decided to bet 300 into a pot of 920, purely trying to represent value here, as slow playing 4-ways would just reduce my equity significantly. I actually had a hand where I had ace-3 offsuit about a month before this tournament, and I slow played it, and then my opponent had pocket 10s, and then the turn was a 10, and I lost a lot of chips. Anyway, that was just a bit of superstition factor for me as well. Don't play like that, just saying. The small bet is also fair in relation to my stack of about 4,000 at this point, so I've dwindled about 1,400. But it gives me an opportunity to steal some pots off the flop with small bets on this competitive table later on as well. So 30% bet is also a good sizing for me to give me some more respect later on. Anyway, everyone folds, and I regain a nice size pot to begin the round. Just for the next 15 minutes, we don't really pick up too many good hands, and we keep on folding, and we wait for the good ones so we can stay alive.
Get this! Oh! The dance!
At this point, we lose our first player. Bennett shoved all in with a gut shot on the turn to hopefully take down the pot, but unfortunately he got called by the pocket rockets and he got sent home packing. Fortunately, he won the wooden spoon, but anyway, we get back to the action. On the same table, after about half an hour, the level changes to level 4. Blinds go up to 40, 80 with 10 ante. A couple orbits around, I pick up the moss, so ace of spades, queen of hearts. Into the under the gun spot, I raised to 250. Both the cutoff and small blind call. Yeah, so that's not amazing, but at least I'm not completely out of position, so I'm in the middle. Comes 3-ways to we go 3-ways to a flop, which comes out 2, 3, 4 with 2 diamonds, giving me a gut shot and 2 overs, so pretty decent flop here for me. To my surprise, the small blind leads for 200 into 830, about 25% of pot. It seems to me that this player doesn't understand pot size betting very much, but he aims to take down medium-sized pots for about 20 to 40% of pot every time. He also value bets for about 100 to 120% pot, so it's fairly easy for us to read, you know, or for me at least, to read what's going on. Whilst I was thinking about my action, about what I was going to do, if I was going to call a raise, as folding here would be silly, I noticed that the cutoff just over there to the left leans forward, and, you know, he tucks his feet in under his seat. This usually shows a sign of interest. However, I didn't want to read into this too much, but rather instead on focusing on, you know, the pot odds and the calling equity I have in this hand. So my outs include the 4 5s remaining in the deck, giving me a straight, as well as the queen of spades and clubs, as the queen of diamonds would bring a flush draw. I mean, I still could be good. Not many people will have 2 diamonds here, but you got to consider that as well. I chose not to count the aces, as outs for me, because that would put 4 to the straight and make it difficult to call another 2 streets of betting. This gave me around 25% equity to call and hit a draw with 2 cards to be seen. I assume the cutoff will call based on his movements. This leaving the pot to approximately 1400, meaning if I want to call for 200, I have to have at least about 14% equity to make a profitable call here. As I calculated, I do so and I make the call. The turn is the 5 of hearts, giving me the third nut wheel behind 6-7 and any hand with a 6. Great for me. So at this point, I'm thinking I probably got the best hand. The small blind checks, good. He could well and truly represent having the 6 or the 7, but he seems to be slowing down. I check for both deception and pot control here, as any hand with a 6 has me dominating, and betting allows for these hands to raise and get more value from me in a spot where I have to call most of the time with a straight. The cutoff also checks. Just to my luck, the river is an ace, wheeling the board. Really unfortunate run out for me. Checking the turn here really downplayed my hand against these fish, as now they all refuse to believe I had a straight with a 6 on the turn. I am confident no one has a 6, so I put 600 in, the small blind checks, and I bet 600, looking for one of the 2 players to fold, unless the cutoff has pocket 6s. This is going to be a chop most of the time. Both players, however, call. The cutoff shows pocket 7s, so pretty close to pocket 6s, and the small blind shows 9-5 offsuit. Not sure what he was doing, but fair enough. The pot is chopped up. Would have been great pot to take down. Unfortunately, the small blind called out of position with 9-5 offsuit to a 3x pre-flop raise. Meaning it was hard for me to get a fold from the cutoff and take down the pot without chopping. In the long run, it's good for me that other players make loose calls out of position, but for this hand, it was obviously a bit frustrating. Back to the action. About half an orbit later, a couple hands, we find ourselves with another pocket pair, because I'm extremely skilled, and pocket pairs is very skill based. 6s it happens to be. Under the gun folds and I limp for 80. I could make an argument for a raise here and isolate the blinds in position, but due to the loose dynamics of the table, now that there seems to be a bit more action, it's almost better off to set mine and extract value from other limpers. The action folds to the small blind who calls, and the big blind checks, sending us 3 ways in position to a flop which comes 6 ace 6. The small blind jams all in for 4,000, and then the big blind reshoves for 5,000 effective, and I snap call with the nuts. We're in dreamland. No, that didn't happen. The flop comes 2-7 king. The small blind bets 200 into 240. The big blind folds, and on the larger size here with third pair, or an under pair, not much potential to call an aggressive line. The small blind decided to tank. He definitely could have had bacon, so I decided to fold. On the button, I look down to the Tony G special, and for those who don't know, it includes any 2 cards in the deck. In this case, 2-3 offsuit. A bit of variation, I limp for 80 in position, going 4 ways with a big blind under the gun and hijack to the flop, which comes Queen Jack 5. Action checks to me. My range here is very suitable to the flop. The under the gun's limping range mostly consists of medium pocket pairs and ace-x holdings. The big blind who checked also has a very wide range, but for this flop, it is not as good. And the hijack also has a decent range in comparison to myself. That he could also have a set of 5s, Queen X, Jack X, or Jack at Queen Jack offsuit. For this reason, I lead for 200 into 340, expecting it to either fold through or get called by the hijack. Everyone folds and the hijack calls. The turn brings the 5 of hearts. Not really a good card for either of our ranges. The hijack checks again. At this point, I put my opponent on 2 pairs, jacks and 5s at best. I feel like This guy's been betting a lot over pot size when he has 2-bet or better. Anyway, my opponent, again, he tends to make variation plays against strong players to try and luck out on pots. For this reason, he just tends to, cause fireworks. And if, in this reason, I use my my odds in my favor, as I would do with top pair on a paired board. I check for pot control. The river is a great card, the Queen of Spades. As the way I played, I could well have a full house with trip queens. The hijack immediately checks, giving me the green light to barrel in like Donkey Kong. I bet 600 into 740, making it extremely hard for a boat of 5s to call here. He snaps it off and shows 9-5 of diamonds. Nice hand, sir. Nice hand. I picked up King 6 of hearts in the small blind. I decided to fold pre-flop as the player on the button, who was a well-established and experienced player, decided to min-raise to 160. Otherwise, I would have loved to defend the blinds with a medium holding, just kind of outside my playing range here for the big blind. The very next hand, I pick up King 6 suited again. Not the bacon I was looking for, King 7 suited, but close enough. This time on the button, I decided to limp in after the cutoff raises again to 160. This time, I call against this player because I have position on him, and I can't let him establish too much credibility pre-flop with the min raises, as he has been doing frequently. We go heads up to a flop, which comes out deuce 5, giving me the second nut flush draw. The cutoff leads for 150 into 400, with no time to waste, only 33% chance to receive, the flush or possibly the nuts. I raised to 600, trying to get a fold here and take down, the pot as early as I can. In reality, this bet was to intimidate the cutoff and build a bit of a reputation, and reduce the frequency of variation in his pre-flop range, because he's taking down too many pots pre-flop and still in the blinds. Anyway, the cutoff thinks for a little bit before making the call. The turn brings the golden card, the ace of diamonds, giving me nut flush. Not the nuts, but the nut flush. My opponent checks, clearly representing an underpair or a weak 2-pair holding, as he shows timidness to the front door flush being made. I don't think he's got a flush here, so I'll check back. I know that, you should be betting for value here a lot, but if he's holding hands like kings, queens, jacks, then checking when the ace comes is good, because then he thinks that those pairs are good, because most of the time I would bet an ace pair. And this also gives him a chance to then maybe lead out on the river and give me some more money. The river is the 6 of clubs, a complete blank, and, to my liking and the plan, the cutoff bet's 700. As much as I would love to raise, with the nut flush, I flat the 700 in the scenario he has pocket 5s or 6s or even ace deuce, which are reasonable hands to play in his position, and, the tendencies he's been making pre-flop. So I turn over the nut flush, and the cutoff shows pocket kings, aka cowboys. So, checking back, the turn there was really, really effective, and just obviously it's a bit results oriented, but I skip a great pot to put me just over 6k before the second break of the second hour. I picked up a beautiful hand, both suited and connected, on the big blind. Nice spades, 8 of spades. After the cutoff and the small blind limp in for 80, I checked to the flop. I could have raised here to try and take down the pot pre-flop, but this hand has such large potential in a multi-way pot, so it seems pretty reasonable to see 3 free cards. The flop comes ace 9 7 with 290 already in the pot. The action is checked through to the cutoff, who makes a standard half pot bet of 150. This guy doesn't really tend to bluff that much, but he also, doesn't tend to always have the nuts. It's kind of like medium to strong holdings is what he kind of consists of. The small blind folds, making an easy call for me with middle pair in a heads up pot. Practically a free turn card. The turn brings the 7 of hearts, so giving me close to the best 2 pair here after aces. I check here for pot control with a comfortable grip on the pot. I expect the button to check back any middle pair holdings or weak top pair holdings the majority of the time, for pot control also, as he tends to do. But to my surprise, the cutoff bet's 425. I have the best non-ace pair 2 pair holding, as the button would most likely not have any premiums such as pocket tens due to Kingston's situation, as he limped in pre-flop with position, and would most likely raise hands to reduce the chance of the big blind flopping good in a limp pot. I go into the tank for over 4 minutes, really trying to break down the hand, as it is a tough decision to fold such a strong hand in the critical part of the tournament. You know, every pot really matters at this point. The main hands to cut off here include any weak ace kicker hands, as well as other middle pair holdings, including 10-9, 9-8. And realistically, because of his position, he could also have limped pre-flop with hands like a7, 6-7, or 7-8, which would leave me drawing dead to a 9 on the river. My other option, instead of calling here, is to take advantage of my big blind and represent a 7 myself, as I hold a large range advantage compared to the cutoff in a multi-way limp pot. It's also very hard for me to rep any strong ace kicker hands here, as the cutoff has played with me before, and as an experienced player, knows that I raise 99 out of 100 times with any strong ace-x hands, you know, to potentially take it down pre-flop. Overall, I estimate here, if I call there, the cutoff will probably fire another bullet on the river, probably at a greater size, putting me in a tough spot. So it's mostly going to be a raise or a fold here for me. There are approximately 6 pocket pairs I beat, as well as hands like 8-10 suited and also club draws, which I'm 80% favourite to. However, there are more hands like 9-10 suited and any ace-x holding, and any hand with a 7, of course, that makes a set. So this leaves me with a pretty easy fold after I do the maths and realize that not only are there more hands that I lose to than I win, but the cost of 425s, that means I have to have, you know, about 50% equity here, and I have less than that 50%. So the cutoff is actually nice enough to show me his hand in probably one of the more difficult hands of the night, in which he turns over 9 of hearts, 8 of hearts, truly showing how, you know, important position is in poker. You have to give credit to the cutoff, as he played the hand well and gave me a little breathing room to make the call with the sizing of his bets. As the tables change, we move on to level 5. Blind's gone up to 75, 150, 20. Shit kind of hit the fan for a while. Lots of small stacks jamming frequently, trying to double up, and, you know, I didn't pick up any considerable hands for a long time. Anyway, I finally pick up ace-5 of diamonds in the biggest of the blinds, and for fuck's sake, the cutoff jams all in for 15 big blinds. I have 33 big blinds with 17 players left, so only 3 people have been eliminated so far. There's really no point to call an all-in with such a poor holding, as suggested by ICM, which regards that 15 big blinds is not worth the risk of 15 big blinds at this stage. Unfortunately, the level does run dry for the next 15 minutes, so pretty much only picked up one good hand the whole time, and got jammed on, so decided to fold to make it, you know, make it through the money, I guess. As level 6 begins, we got blinds at 125, 250 with a 25 ante, so things starting to ramp up a bit now. Into the undergun spot, I pick up ace-10 offsuit. There are multiple stacks under 8 big blinds, and players across the table willing to jam or call an all-in for any opportunity to double up. A call or raise all-in here could be seen as a good play, but I decided to fold under the gun. You know, didn't want to get into too much trouble, and I think that I have the potential to, you know, make it all the way down to the final stages of this tournament, so I folded through. I find my stack in Dwindletown, only 19 big blinds left, getting to the tight end of the tournament now. Still in level 6, as I find pocket 9s on the button, another pocket pair for me. I do love my pocket pairs. 4 people limp after the big blind for 250. So it's really weird to see people limping at this stage of the tournament. It tends to be more aggression that takes place here. I have just under 5k in my stack, and there's about 1300 in the pot. This hand is at the high end of my range of the buttons, so I decided to jam to try and get a call from a small stack, and if not, skip a 5.5 big blind pot. All players fold, and I rise to a comfortable 24.5 big blinds. On to level 7, 200, 400 with a 50 ante. In one of the most crucial hands of the night, we really get into the pointy end now. I'm in the small blind with 10 big blinds left. I look down to Queen 7 of diamonds. The action folds to me on the small blind. There is about 650 in the pot, and I'm at risk of losing 200 in the small blind. I decided to jam knowing that the big blind would be extremely unlikely to pick up a monster in his position. Unfortunately, the big blind asked to count my stack, so I'm in a bit of an awkward situation here. He's probably going to call. I now have 4100, and he makes the call. He has me covered. He's got about 10k. The big blind shows GDs. Jack of diamonds, Jack of hearts, putting us with a 31% chance to stay in the tournament. The flop comes out. 5 of diamonds, 5 of spades, 2 of diamonds, giving me the flush draw and a great chance to stay in the tournament, improve my odds to 40%. So really a good flop for me here, and I'm just sitting there, praying that I can continue to go on. The turn is the ace of diamonds, giving me the flush, making me a 90% favorite to double up and keep the tournament dream alive. All I have to do is fade a 5 or a jack to keep the dream alive and hold the glorious WSONP trophy. Well, there's a lot more work to do than that, but you can always pray. The river is the 4 of diamonds, allowing me to continue to grind flush over flush style. The stack is sitting at about 8200, so 20.5 big blinds. I roll out the rest of the round without being charged blinds or playing any hands, as there seemed to be a lot of jamming and tanking going on. So that was good for me. Moving on to level 8, so the blinds increased yet again, so things really started to increase here. The adjudicators were removing a lot of the smaller denomination chips, so there was a lot of pausing in that, so it tended to feel more like an hour than half an hour for each level. The round was fairly dry. I actually picked up a couple of pots pre-flop by raising weak and cleaning antes and blinds, which propped my stack to about 9,500. 30 minutes later, I had around 11 big blinds left, and it's starting to look a bit ropey. Fortunately, there are a lot of small stacks left in the 20. My stack being 5th overall with the remaining 12 players. So somehow with 11 big blinds, I'm 5th. I'm not complaining. I'm really just going to focus on ICM here and make sure that, I can maybe push myself through to the money. Half an hour later, still haven't played a hand in a while. Move on to level 9, the blinds up to 800, 1600, and 200 ante. 8 minutes in, and the number has fallen to 8, so 4 people have been eliminated, leading us to the holy final table. So we all re-rack and put our chips on at the final table. I sit down with about 9.5k, and I start on the small blind. Picking up no significant hands, I let the fireworks commence around me, which was what, I'm just going to sit back and do in 5th position, and fold myself into the money. Somehow, 3 people eliminate themselves, and I did no work. So enough with the jibber jabber. I pick up another pocket pair, pocket 8s in the under the gun +1. I have about 4 big blinds, so 6,500 chips remaining. I'm still 5th. So there's really no ICM rolls apart from me trying to target the 4th biggest stack here to try and maybe make a page on. I isolate the 4th largest stack on the big blind here, and my direct competitor for chip values on the big blind. He thinks for a moment before making the decision to call with ace-8 suited. I have him extremely dominated and in for a great chance to double up here and potentially put myself into 4th. The flop comes out 4-8 queen, drilling the set and leaving the big blind drawing to runner flush or runner aces full. The turn brings the 3 of hearts and leaves my opponent drawing dead. I take down the massive pot, doubling my stack to 8.5 big blinds and putting myself in 4th position. My stack proceeds to fall to about 9,800 or 6 big blinds, and I wake up to Jordan's favourite, the ladies in the cutoff. Another pocket pair again. I'm not lying to you guys, I do get a lot of pocket pairs. I don't know why that is, but maybe consider myself lucky, who knows. Action is folded around to me with 5 players remaining. I rip it in. The small blind thinks for a while, tanks Andrew before folding. So I was worried about the small blind because he's a massive stack, and if he calls, he could eliminate me in 4th position and give, 5th position a pay rise for free. The player who I have doubled up on twice so far in the tournament with Queen 7 suited and pocket 8s, decides to call with King 7. He's 5th stack size in the tournament, so this is great for me. Can finally knock him out. I go into the flop as 70% favorite. The board runs out clean, and I take down another crucial pot, putting me around 21,000 chips and taking me to the top 4. Eliminating that player, I do apologize because I did really wreck him a lot in 3 all-ins, so I am sorry about that, but I made a pay jump to 4th, and here we are for 4 players remaining after an initial 20. Level 10 commences. I sit 4th in stack size with just over 21,000 chips. 3rd just having me covered with 22,000, so it's pretty close here. And then 1st and 2nd also both pretty even with I'm not sure how much, but there's about 108,000 chips in play, and I hold 20% of them at this point. Early on in the level, I pick up Ace 10 of spades in a small blind. The dealer calls the big blind for 3,000, and I decide to jam it all in to try and make a big move in the tournament. The big blind puts out a sign, decides to make the call for 21,000 with just over 22 in his stack. So he didn't rejam, he just called, giving me a massive chance to steal almost guaranteed pay jump if I win this pot. The button moves out the way, so we're going 2 ways. And the big blind turns over King 10 of hearts. I go into the biggest pot of the entire tournament as a 70% favorite to scoop a $50,000 pot. Almost 50% of the tournament chips in play. So if I win this, I'm in a great position 4 ways with 50% of the tournament chips. The reason I jammed all in on a small blind was to take 3rd position chip lead against the big blind, and then not be at risk of being eliminated if I went all in at any point onwards. If the guy in the big blind decides to call me all in at any point onwards, then I wouldn't be at risk of going out because I'd have more chips than him. So that was the reasoning behind the jam. I know Ace 10 isn't the strongest holding, but it seems to be in a good position against King 10, as this guy had called some pretty weak hands earlier on as well. The flop comes 10 of diamonds, King of clubs, Queen of hearts. Somehow I've been outflopped, leaving me with a 25% chance to stay in the tournament and potentially going to win the tournament with 50% of all the chips in play if I peel a jack or an ace here. The board runs out, 3 clubs and the 9 of spades for the river. So officially been eliminated in the 2020 World Series of Nuts of Poker. Against the odds, finishing in 4th out of 20. I was pretty proud of my efforts, but also it really does hurt to go out as a 70% favorite at such a deep point in the tournament. Well guys, sometimes the odds do not go your way when you need them to, and that is the brutal thing about poker. It's always gambling at the end of the day. I was really happy to finish 4th, but disappointed to not take home the dub after playing many hours of solid, consistent poker. I don't really make any mistakes apart from, 2-3 offsuit against a good player. But yeah, congratulations to the big blind, the guy who actually took me out with King 10, who ended up going on to win the tournament after calling with ace high on a connected board to Rick straight, which did not come. So yeah, congratulations to him, and yeah. Just a quick disclaimer here for the end of the video. After watching back the footage, I noticed that it sounds like I'm kind of thinking that I know exactly what I'm doing. I just want to make it clear that, this whole video is more me experimenting of my play style. I've obviously learned a lot since, December or November or whenever whenever the tournament was. It's been months, but yeah. So this is no way me telling you guys how to play. I just thought that I should give my experience and what I was thinking at the time, and it's also a good way for me to learn as well because I can go back through these hands and then, you know, check where the mistakes were and if I could have got more value, if I lost chips where I shouldn't have, and yeah. So this is just an experiment for me. So don't take it seriously and don't think that I think that I'm the best, but I'm more just having fun with it and learning how to play as best as I can. So hopefully when we play tournaments in the future, I'll be able to, you know, do better and, you know, win some more money. You know, thanks guys for, you know, watching into the review of the 2020 World Series of Nuts and Poker. 2020 WSONP is being planned. It's underway, so we're gonna make it bigger and better next year. Hopefully, a 2-day event. So everyone get excited for something that's going on later in October and November this year. Yeah. Well, really big thank you to Jordan and his parents as well for hosting the event, obviously. And then congratulations to Rig, Vass, Phil, and Pat for also making the money. So yeah, good job to that guys, and unfortunate to Pato and Muzz who also bubbled, and you know, congratulations to Bennett for going out first. You know, it's really hard to go out first in the tournaments, so good on him. And yeah, anyway, thanks for watching, and hopefully you guys enjoy. See you later.
I'm ready.
Skull. Look at him go.
Hey!